The title of this video will be something like Letting Happen, Sovereignty over the Empty Self and Not Othering Others. So this is the the fourth one in a series of 4 on the subject of sovereignty. Hence I've dressed up to the maximum in my Chinese style black robes and my old kesa that I sewed about 35 years ago, and don't usually tie up because it's so delicate that it tends to tear if I try and attach it in place. So I usually just kind of just wrap it around myself when I wear it. So sovereignty over the empty self and letting happen sovereignty over the empty self and not othering others. And as a preamble, I made a video on bhavana as letting happen, and somebody left a comment on YouTube and asked me my opinion about Zazen, why Zazen itself isn't mentioned more in the old ancient texts, and I kind of possibly a little bit arrogantly said I'm not interested in saying my opinion, you know, but actually what happened is the penny dropped that bhavana, Zazen, is what the Chinese masters called bhavana. That's not my opinion. If you study the ancient texts, that's bloody obvious, you know. So it's what I said is the penny dropped, and I'm not really interested in debating it with anybody, you know. It's just like saying 2 and 2 is 4. There's nothing to debate. Or maybe it's arrogance, or maybe just confidence that you've seen something obvious. The reason I've been able to see that is partly because of my kind of awkward contrary tendency not to really like being told by authorities what the truth is. And earlier on in the cooperation between Gudo Nishijima Sensei and myself, he was less kind of authoritarian. It was more like we were digging out, like archaeologists sometimes describe it. We were digging out, excavating the truth. And he recommended me, he encouraged me to go back to the ancient Sanskrit texts. He encouraged me to study Sanskrit and to study Nagarjuna, to find confirmation in the ancient texts for what Master Dogen wrote in Shobogenzo and for his own understanding of realism. But ironically enough, what I actually find in Nagarjuna's writings, when I study them, regardless of my own opinion, is the exact refutation of Zen realism, not the confirmation of it, the absolute refutation of realism. And it's not only a refutation of Nishijima Sensei's understanding. In a sense, it's also a refutation of Master Dogen's understanding, because in Shobogenzo, I mean, I haven't actually studied Shobogenzo for I don't know how many years, more than 20 years. 16 years ago, I started studying Sanskrit, and since then, I haven't really been interested too much in Shobogenzo. But I do remember that Master Dogen said the supreme teaching among the schools in Zen or in the Buddhist teaching is Sarvastivadins. The Sarvastivadins rule okay. I can't remember exactly how he said it. So Sarvastivadin, Vadin means speaking of or teaching, and Sarva means all, and Asti means exists. So Sarvastivadin means saying that all exists. And that is precisely what Nagarjuna takes pains to refute in Mula Madhyamaka Karika. So, if we take, for example, sovereignty, if we understand sovereignty is something that exists, then it's something that I can possess. And we're conditioned to think in those terms. Even in science, modern science that's been so discredited with the COVID scamdemic and so on, the real basic fault, what the philosophers call the ontological fault of it, is belief that the external world exists, belief in nature out there. It's the othering of nature, basically, is the basic problem. So we other nature, we other it, we see it as out there, and then we study it on the basis of that assumption. Whereas emptiness refutes that most fundamental of views by saying, no, there's no nature out there separate from what's going on in here. So nothing exists. Everything is happening, dependent on everything else happening. That's the teaching of pratitya samutpada, aka emptiness. Emptiness means everything is dependently arisen. That means it's happening now. Nagarjuna described it as gamyam. The second chapter of MK is called Gata Gata Gamyamanam. Gata Gata Gamyamana Pariksha, exploring what's happened, what's yet to happen, and what's now happening, or more literally, exploring the already visited, the not yet visited, and the now being visited. So what people call reality, which you hear the word reality, and you immediately kind of think of objective, solid, hard-nosed reality, which has got nothing to do with my opinions, which is true. But it's got nothing to do with my opinions and views, not because it exists there objectively, it's because it's bloody well happening, irrespective of my views and opinions. But it's not happening independently of me. That's why, when we understand that, we start to see the importance of intentions. The powers that be don't want us to realise how important our own intentions are. They want us to follow George Soros's idea that objective reality, the markets are all operating out there like according to the laws of physics. No, it's not true. The intentions of the powers that be have been incredibly important in manipulating the science. And you see, going back to the Tavistock has got a history going back to the Earls of Bedford, all the way back down to the Henry VIII kicking out the Catholics and establishing the Church of England, whose head, who do you think the head of the Church of England is? It isn't Archbishop Justin Welby, puppet though he is of the authorities anyway. It's bloody King Charles. The Church of England is headed by the King. What kind of church, Christian church, is that? We accept these things without really questioning what's behind them. So what's behind a lot of our British conditioning is Tavistock. If you look into Tavistock, and Tavistock, the legacy of Tavistock has been picked up in America by MK Ultra, mind control. So what Tavistock wants us to believe is that the external world exists out there, and we establish the truth of it by science, and our own intentions are not so important. Okay. My intention is not to drift into the territory of my own views and opinions on this. What I want to say is that I've been guided very much by the ancient texts. So when somebody asks me my opinion about bhavana versus zazen, it's not my opinion. It's there in the ancient texts. The Buddha taught bhavana, letting happen, as the means for freeing the mind from pollutants. Sarvasravan bhavanaya vibhuya jai shanti mavapya na jayate bhuya. That's from Saundarananda. Sarvasravan, all the pollutants. Bhavanaya, with bhavana, by letting happen. Abhibhuya, overcome. We overcome all the pollutants, all the poisons that kind of flow into the mind like pollutants. We overcome all those, bhavanaya, by the practice of letting happen. Or, if you prefer to use the word zazen, by practicing zazen. But not by practicing zazen as a thing to do with right posture or non-empty things. By practicing zazen as a letting happen. It's all there in Asvaghosa's writing, which Nagarjuna, 2 generations later, he really clarified, brought out the importance in Asvaghosa's teaching of emptiness, because it's there already once you understand it, but it's emphasized. The teaching of emptiness is emphasized more in Nagarjuna's writing. So we're talking about sovereignty, as I introduced in the first talk in this series of 4. We're interested in sovereignty as an empty happening. So I was aware that this is the 4th talk in a series of 4. So I kind of thought, this is the big one, this is where I can talk about zammai or zammai, the samadhi that is king of samadhis, the sovereignty of golden sitting in the full lotus posture, all that kind of stuff. So as I was kind of building myself up for what I thought would be I wanted to make it like a big important talk. Every morning I go through the 8 thoughts of a great person, Mahapurusha Vitaraka, and recently going back to Asvaghosa, I've liked to recite a verse of Asvaghosa, of which there are many, corresponding to each of the 8 thoughts. Then for the first one, alpecchu in Sanskrit, wanting little. One of the verses that I revisited in light of that contains the line, mahac dagdhuṁ bhava-kakṣa-jālaṁ saṁdhukṣayālpāgnim ivātma-tejaḥ. So mahac dagdhuṁ, mahat means great, big. Dagdhuṁ means to burn. And then bhava-kakṣa-jālaṁ reminds me of Alexander's phrase, the tangled skein of our present existence. So bhava means existence or becoming or being, and kaksha means like underwood, undergrowth, something which is easy to burn, and jālaṁ means a heap or a tangle. So tangled skein of existence is quite a literal translation, as it happens, of bhava-kakṣa-jālaṁ. So the whole, if you look on the wheel of becoming or the wheel of being, the wheel of existence, bhava chakra, all that stuff that's going on there, the Buddha's pointing to the the full moon happening in the sky. And Mara he has got in his claws the wheel of existence, the wheel of becoming, the wheel of being. We want to get off the wheel of being and into the area where everything is happening. So in order to, dagdhuṁ means to burn up mahac, the great tangle of existence, the great tangled skein of existence. Saṁdhukṣayālpāgnim means it's imperative. It means to set a light, to make a fire of. Saṁdhukṣayālpāgnim, alpa small, as in alpecchu, wanting little, alpagnim, a little fire, a small fire, like a small fire. Atma, your own, tejaḥ is a word that Asvaghosa likes a lot, and it means fire in the sense of fiery energy, like fiery spirit, fighting spirit. So in order to burn up the great tangled skein of existence, set alight your own energy like a small fire. So that, you see, all this shit that's happening at the moment with the pandemic and the war, World War III and everything like this, what can any of us do about it? See, if we believe in the Tavistock idea, the scientific idea, that all this stuff is going on and here we are just passively observing it, without really being able to affect it with our own intention, then, well, might as well just be mindful of our breathing and be more or less passive. But when we understand that it's not about mindfulness of breathing, but anapanasati means remembering, like remembering what you want to happen. Anapana, while breathing in and out. So not mindfulness of breathing, as if breathing is a sort of a thing going on independently. No, it's like, here I sit, I can take a deep breath, or I can take lots of little short breaths. It's up to me. Sometimes I can forget about breathing and let the breathing do itself. But if I want to, I can take a deep breath or take a short breath. And when you look for the Buddha doesn't say you're not allowed intentionally to take a deep breath or take a short breath. You have to be passively watching it. No, he uses the analogy of a master turner, a wood turner. So the master turner of wood, he can pull the thing to make a long turn or make a short turn. So we've misunderstood our scientific understanding. We're so conditioned to accept it. We've understood the Buddha's teaching, but we fail to understand the Buddha's teaching through the prism of that. So the intention is important. Now, Wim Hof, for example, emphasizes like making a fire of our own energy, and he's on the right lines there, And also, Wim he's a very modest, although he's gone around breaking lots of records in a bit of an egotistical way. Well, not necessarily. He's drawn attention to his work by going around breaking all these records. He's a very modest person. And so this is the point. You see, when you start to see things, it's not a paradox that you want little, at the same time you have it in mind to burn up the whole kind of house of cards that the powers that be have constructed to control our minds because of evil intentions, to exercise sovereignty over others. We can oppose that by letting happen sovereignty over ourselves in a very small way. And in that line, I start to understand what Asvaghosa was talking about in that line. Mahac dagdhuṁ, bhava-kakṣa-jālaṁ. To burn up the great tangled skein of existence. Make a small fire of your own energy. So I don't have to sit here like being the great powerful presence who's demonstrating in a massive way the mighty power of samadhi. No. I can sit here minding my own business, enjoying morning coffee, not seeing anybody, just minding my own business, carrying on with gardening in a small way. If I'm successful in that, if I can light a little fire of my own energy with kind of humility and modesty, not wanting to sort of make a big thing of my own opinion, but just drawing a little bit of attention to what the ancient Sanskrit texts are saying. Who knows what could happen from that? Because if you want to burn up all the undergrowth of the forest, the hardest thing is generating a spark, isn't it? Getting a fire going, especially if there's been a lot of rain and everything is damp. The difficult thing is making a small fire. Then once you get a small fire going, it's relatively easy. Who knows what could happen after that? In the same way, the 8 thoughts of a great person, they're all pointing. If you can understand the practicality of that, having the practicality of wanting little, starting small, setting the bar low, and then going from there. One thing tends to do another. It's like if you want little, it's natural to be satisfied. If you're greedy, you'll never be satisfied. But if you want little, you can be satisfied. A cup of coffee in the morning. Haven't had any breakfast yet, but satisfied with just a cup of coffee. That kind of thing. Wanting little leads to alpecchu, leads to saṁdhukṣayālpāgnim. Saṁdhukṣayālpāgnim means satisfaction, contentment. Then, if you want little and easily find contentment, that leads to enjoying seclusion. Not least if you're talking about sexual greed. But everything else, all the things we're encouraged to be greedy for, if you can want little and be satisfied with little, then it's quite easy to find live in seclusion. It becomes easier to live in seclusion, separated. So again, Asvaghosa on the point, talking of seclusion, he said, yoganulomam vijanam vishabdam. Yoganulomam vijnanam vishabdam. A place suited for yoga, free of people, free of noise, which is definitely where I am here. Is certainly free of people, free of noise. Shayasanam tata saumya bhajasva. For shaya means lying down, asana means sitting. Tata saumya, like that, my friend, bhajasva, repair to. So repair to a place suitable for yoga, suitable for practice, lying and sitting, free of people and free of noise. Kayasya kritva hi vivekam adau. Kayasya, of the body, kritva, making, vivekam, seclusion, adau, first. For establishing first seclusion of the body, suk adigantum, manaso viveka. It's easy to obtain. Sukha, easy. Adigantum, to obtain. Manaso, of the mind. Viveka, seclusion. So first establishing seclusion of the body. It's easy to obtain seclusion of the mind, which is true. You've got no distraction. You can just let the magic of the ancient texts, if you memorize them, ancient verses, let the magic of them do their work. So, alpecchu, santushti, praviveka, virya. So virya means persistence, perseverance. And again, if you're living on your own without distractions, even if you're relatively lazy, you've got so much time to keep coming back. And again, letting the magic of the ancient teaching do its work. The effort involved is not necessarily a big, mighty sort of heroic effort. It's just go keep buggering on. So again, go back to Asvaghosa. Anikshiptotsaho. See, part of the beauty of Asvaghosa's poetry, which isn't there in Nagarjuna. So Nagarjuna's just straight. He's kind of more dry. It's just every verse in MMK is 32 syllables, 4 lines of 8 syllables, 4 pada of 8 syllables, 4 feet of 8 steps, if you like. But Asvaghosa plays with all these beautiful meters, and so the verse I'm reciting now, it's got 2 short syllables, then 5 long syllables. So anikshiptotsaho. It's got 1. It starts with a short syllable, then it's got 5 long syllables. A, short. Nikshiptotsaho. So it's the thing about it. I want to say is it's so reliable. See, there's always these really old texts. There's here and there. There's some doubt about was it that word or that word. But basically, because the meter is so strict, it's like it's not so much that the verses rhyme, but the meter is so strict, it helps kind of that definite form that they stick to. It makes it extra reliable. So when you go back and memorize these verses of Asvaghosa, this is the 12th Zen patriarch in India. Asvaghosa and Nagarjuna between them, they knew what the Buddha taught, and they made the effort to express that understanding in these Sanskrit verses with very strict meter. So when we memorize these verses, it's so reliable. You're so close to the original teaching. It's back to the source. Because unfortunately, like with teaching like the Sarvastivadin teaching and all the influence of Tavistock and MK Ultra, there is so much unreliable stuff. And we're not free of that. I'm not free of that. Nishijima Sensei wasn't free of that. It's like the water is all muddy down here. So we want to go back upstream. And going back upstream, there are these Sanskrit verses in strict, reliable meter. So here we go again. I use my fingers like this so to count as I'm going. A, first syllable. Not. Nikshipdotsaho. Not flagging exertion. We've done flagging exertion. Then we've got some short syllables. Yadi kanati. Yadi if. Kanati he digs. If he digs with unflagging exertion, then two long syllables. Gam, vari. Gam means earth. Vari means water. Labate. He obtains. If he digs with unflagging exertion, he obtains water. So he's talking about somebody digging a well. Again, you wouldn't dig a well in like 10 minutes of heroic effort. It'd be a few days of buggering on, wouldn't it? And then second line, same meter. Prasaktam. First syllable pra, short, then saktam. Prasaktam means continually. Prasaktam vyamatnan. Excuse me. Vyamatnan means twirling, like when you twirl a fire stick. Rubbing, twirling. Prasaktam vyamatnan. So constant twirling. Jvalanam. Jvalanam means flame, fire. Then two short syllables, ara. Then long ones, nibyam. Ara nibyam means with or from fire sticks. Prasaktam vyamatnan jvalanam ara nibyam. Janayati. Janayati means produce, generate. So he generates a flame by constantly twirling the fire sticks. So again, this is one the Buddha's favourite metaphor for making effort. It's not a big physical, strenuous task. Making a fire, if you watch YouTube videos of Ray Mears or these other survival guys, it's first of all a lot of preparation, and it's knowing a method, and then it's just keep persisting. And pra again, short syllable. Prayukta yoge tu. Again, so it's one short syllable. Prayukta yoge tu. The tu is long because it's got a double consonant. The next word is dhruvam. Dhruvam means surely, certainly. So prayukta means harnessed to, joined to. Yoge, to yoga. So yoga is locative. So to yoga, harnessed to yoga. To means but. But harnessed to yoga. Prayukta yoge tu. Dhruvam upalabante. So the short syllables there. Prayukta yoge tu dhruvam labhante. So then 4 short syllables. Is it 5? Dhruvam lab. So that's three short syllables, isn't it? Ante is 2 long syllables. Prayukta yoge tu dhruvam labhante shrama palam. Shrama means effort, palam means fruit. Upalabhante, obtain, get. He surely obtains the fruit of effort, whose effort is harnessed, who is harnessed to yoga. Okay, so in the same way that the guy who digs the well or who makes the fire from scratch gets the result, gets the fruit, gets the result by persistent effort. In the same way in yoga, the effort we're after is through persistent effort. The effort we're after, the fruit we're after in the end, is freeing the mind from all the pollutants, all the faults. The final one of which is ignorance of emptiness. You see, in a way, if you believe that Sarvastivadin is the best school in Buddhism, you weren't free of emptiness. You weren't free of ignorance about emptiness. If you understood the teaching of emptiness, you wouldn't say that the supreme teaching in Buddhism is that all things exist. You'd say the opposite. Sounds kind of arrogant for me to sit here saying that my teacher was wrong and Master Dogen was wrong. But that's just what the ancient teachings say. If you go back and study what Nagarjuna said, throwing away your own opinion, it's bloody obvious. Nagarjuna leaves us in absolutely no doubt about it. His opponent in MMK is a Sarvastivadin, somebody who says that all things exist. The opponent is a Zen realist. See, the 8 thoughts of a great person I'm going through now, they're leading to nisprapansha, which means not othering. So even talking about sovereignty, if we misunderstand it, we other sovereignty. We turn it into something out there which I can get my dirty paws on. And then we're greedy for it. It goes back again to wanting little. See, there are five verses I like to recite, which are a bit long to go through, but the first 3 verses cover Shila, Samadhi, Prajna. And Shila means good conduct. Okay, and that's important, because if you practice good conduct, it's like the faults don't attack us. If we remember what we want to happen with our whole bodies, like Marjorie Barlow said, the whole body informed with thought. If we remember so that the whole body is informed with thought, that's the true meaning of so-called mindfulness, then the faults don't attack us. But then samadhi, it's like a mountain casting off the mighty torrents of rivers. If we're firm sitting in samadhi, the faults are like charmed snakes, powerless to harm us. But wisdom, prajna, wisdom destroys the faults like like a mountain stream rushing down the Himalayan mountain and uprooting trees on its way down. The faults don't stand a chance. They're burned up like trees in the wake of a fiery thunderbolt. So the emphasis is on all three: Shila, Samadhi, Prajna. And then Asvaghosa says, Tri skandam etam pravigaya margam. So, tri skandam, three skandhas, three-way classification. Tri skandam etam, this, margam, path. Pravigaya, throwing oneself into it. Throwing oneself into this three-way path. And it's a nice poetic line there. Praspashtam ashtangam aharyam aryam. Praspashtam, straightforward. Ashtangam, 8 branches. We're talking about the eightfold path. Praspashtam ashtangam aharyam. Not removable. Not removable. Nobody can take it away from you. Aryam, Aryan, noble. This noble, eightfold, straightforward, eightfold path. Dukasya hedun prajahati doshan. One abandons, prajahati, doshan, the faults, hedun, which are the causes, dukasya, of suffering. Prapnoti chatyanta shivam padam tat. And one obtains, prapnoti, one realizes, prapnoti chatyanta shivam. Cha and atyanta, totally, excessively. Shivam, happy, blissful. Padam, step, tat. And one realizes that step, which is total well-being, complete happiness. So he's talking about the ultimate thing there, and that's related with nishprapancha, not othering anything, being one with everything, total well-being. But then it goes back again to alpecchu, because he says, ashyopachare arjava, ashyopachare dirtir arjavamcha. So upachara means attending. So attendant on it, in attendance on it, upachare is locative. In attendance, asya, on it, of it. Dirtir, firmness, constancy. Arjavam, cha and arjavam. It's from urjum, which means tending upright. So this is a stock phrase of the Buddha's was ujum kayam panidaya parimukam satim upatapetva. So having established mindfulness to the front, having established to the front, to the fore, what we remember and what we want to happen, in other words, that's preventative. So we don't want to happen that, the doing of the upright, a non-empty upright position. Ujum kayam panidaya means directing the body, urjum, upwards, in an upright direction. That's literally, if you look in the Sanskrit, urjum means in a straight direction, upward. So arjavam is a noun from that. So attendant on that devotion to the path of Shila, Samadhi, Prajna, killing the faults, attendant on that is firmness, constancy, and uprightness. In an empty sense, uprightness. Then, next line, Hrir apramada. Hrir apramadaha praviviktatacha. So Hrir is humility. Apramada means not being intoxicated. It means attentiveness, but literally, pramada means like lust, intoxication, exuberance. So the opposite of that is kind of being attentive. Kriya apramada praviviktatacha. And praviviktata is like seclusion, reclusiveness, solitude. So that's the third thought. Praviveka, praviviktata. So the ta is like ness. So pravivikta means secluded, and ta means ness. So secludedness. So in other words, attendant on devoting to the three-way path is humility, not getting carried away with anything, and secludedness, reclusiveness, solitude. The point is that there's the description of nirvana, if you like, getting rid of fault. It kind of builds up to this, the state of total well-being, but it's not an inflated kind of thing. It's attendant on it are these very humble virtues, going back again to wanting little. So attendant on it are firmness, uprightness, humility, non-exuberance, and secludedness. Then third line, alpecchu dushtir asamgatacha. Alpecchu is like alpecchu means wanting little, and ta means as a quality, the quality of wanting little. Tushtir, as in samtushti, the second of the 8 thoughts. Tushti means contentment. Wanting little, contentment. And asamgata, sangha means community. A is negative. Ta, again, ness. So it means not community-ness. Not you could, for example, F.M. Alexander, they said he was not a clubbable man. Didn't join in. He wasn't a group thinker. So it has those connotations. But the emphasis again is it's all back to making a small fire of your own energy. It's not talking about, going out and making a big splash in the world. The opposite. And then fourth line is again in the same vein. Loka pravrita varati kshamacha. Loka, the world, pravratau, forward rolling. Pra means forward, vrti means rolling. So rolling forward, look in the world. Arati, no liking for getting on in the world. And then Kshama means tolerance. It's thought to be cognate with the word for earth. Again, it has a sense of humility. But again, if you want little and are content, then, as it says in Shobogenzo, a person who wants little and knows contentment has allowance in his dealings with others. Because like, if you think of it, if you're greedy and dissatisfied, kind of greedy and grasping, then you don't tend to have much tolerance. So the final word in describing what's attendant on devotion to the Eightfold Path is this kind of forbearance or tolerance. So what I'm emphasising is the importance of starting with wanting little, alpecchu. One thing leads to another. So we're as far as smriti, which means thinking, remembering. That's number 5 of the 8 thoughts. And then that leads to samadhi. So these first five of the 8 thoughts are all thoughts. Samadhi is described by Asvaghosa as being free of thoughts. Asvaghosa describes samadhi as being, he uses the analogy of like, you think of it like the river Ganges, big, broad, tranquil river flowing on. And thoughts are like waves that produce a disturbance in that kind of river. And so there's a fault in thinking. Thinking is pleasant and useful, but there's a fault in it. So he says, he describes the first dhyana as viveka-jam priti sukham. So the grace, the joy and ease that's born of seclusion. That's the first dhyana. Then the second dhyana, the second state of Zen, the second Zen, is samadhi-jam priti sukham. The grace and ease, the joy and ease born of samadhi. And that is gradually avitarkam kramasho vicharam. Gradually free of thinking, free of reflection. So samadhi is, to use the Buddha's metaphor, it's like something holding water still. Like it must have been in an ancient Indian irrigation system. There would have been a well, something like a well, and because of being contained in the well, the water would remain still. So Asvaghosa's metaphor is a bit more dynamic, that the stillness is on the surface of a moving river. But in the Buddha's metaphor, as I understand it, the Buddha describes samadhi as being like still water being contained in maybe a stone, like cistern type thing. Anyway, the stillness is an absence of thinking. And this was very much emphasized by Nishijima Sensei as the most important thing in Zazen. Samadhi literally means putting together. So the putting together is there in the Buddha's metaphor of the water and what contains it. Together, they result in the stillness. The putting together could also be a kind of a meeting of theory and practice. See, for me, the meeting of theory and practice is the teaching of emptiness. And something didn't add up before I came to understand what Nagarjuna was talking about, emptiness. So if something doesn't add up, for me, that's a disturbance. And when it all makes sense, when it adds up, then you can let go of thinking. Before it adds up, you shouldn't really let go of thinking. You should be keep on thinking, trying to solve the problem. Whether you should or not, it happens in my experience. If you haven't solved the problem, you'll keep on worrying about trying to solve it. Then when you solve it, there's nothing more to think about. Like 2 and 2 is 4. It's okay. There's no debate. It's just clear. So the point is, so it goes from thought number 5 is remembering, thinking, and then thought number 6 is samadhi, which is like the negation of thinking. But that isn't the end of the story. See, samadhi, if the point is freedom from faults, the metaphor for samadhi is like a mountain. Stillness of a mountain, the faults are like charmed snakes, but they're still there. What we have to go on onto next is thought number 7, which is prajna, wisdom, understanding. And that is what finishes the faults off. And it's the wisdom of emptiness. One thing leads to the other. Samadhi is not the end point. Even if we're just talking at the level of the 4 dhyanas, Nanda saw a fault with the Buddha's teaching. Nanda in Saundarananda sees a fault in samadhi jam priti sukham, the joy and ease, the pleasure of samadhi. There's a fault in that, because any kind of pleasurable feeling is also a kind of disturbance. So from the 2nd dhyana, which is samadhi, one goes on to the 3rd and the 4th dhyana. So the 4th dhyana is just kind of like pure mindfulness, pure detachment. So it's a very peaceful state. But it's not the 4th dhyana is not the end of anything. So it's again, when I first came to Asvaghosa's poetry, the first thing I looked at, I wanted to understand how he described Zen. So my attention went straight to the four dhyana, his poetic rendering of the 4 dhyana. But gradually the penny drops. The 4 dhyana is not what it's all about. They're important, but only so. In Asvaghosa's description of Nanda's progress, he describes the 4th dhyana as being an ally. So Nanda was at the gate to the citadel of nirvana, and the 4th dhyana was his noble ally. So the 4th dhyana is not the end of anything. It's an ally in attaining the wisdom which will lead to being free of all faults. So that's prajna. Like an axe, like a sharp sword for cutting, clinging. And so again in Asvaghosa's poetry, prajnasina bhavanaya prajnasina bhavanai eritena So prajna, wisdom or understanding, asina, with the sword. So with the sword of wisdom, bhavanaya, that's instrumental of bhavana, feminine. So the feminine word for bhavana, which means so with letting happen, with the practice of letting happen. Edita means moved, wielded. Editena is instrumental. So we cut, Nanda cut the upper 5 fetters with the sword of wisdom, which is wielded by the practice of letting happen. That's prajna. That's thought number 7 of the 8 thoughts. And thought number 8 is nishprapancha. And recently, I'm wondering if the way to translate that's most useful in our present discussion of letting happen sovereignty over the empty self and not othering others, then nishprapancha, you can translate it not othering. So what does it mean not to other? It means just to abide in emptiness. So final verse then in Sanskrit is from Nagarjuna's MMK. So 4 lines of 4 syllables. Karma klesha kshayan moksha, karma klesha vikalpataha, te prapanchastu, shunyatayam nirudyate. So first line, karma klesha, karma and klesha, afflictions. Karma klesha kshayan, from the ending, from the fading away. Karma klesha kshayan moksha, moksha, liberation. So liberation is from the fading away of karma and afflictions. So we hear that, we tend to think, oh, well, I've got this bad karma, that has to fade away. And then I've got all these various faults and afflictions that are still there and need to get rid of those. Then the second line says, karma klesha vikalpataha. Karma and afflictions are from vikalpa. That means imagining, constructing. So in the end, there is no karma. There are no afflictions, not as non-empty things. I just demonstrated how we think of them as things to be get rid of. In that way, they're just a construct, a convenient fiction. There is no karma to fade away. There are no afflictions to destroy. Third line says, te prapanchat. They are from prapancha. Te prapanchat. Te prapanchat. That's the ablative ending, at, means from. So they are from prapancha. They're because of othering. See, karma and afflictions as non-empty things come from our othering them. That's what like psychology does. It others the mind. That's so like the mind is a thing out there for us to understand with its karma and its faults and so on, its neuroses. Now this is saying all that stuff is prapanchat, from othering. Prapanchastu, but to, prapancha, othering. So they are from othering, but othering. Te prapanchat, prapanchastu. Shunyatayam is locative of shunyata, so in emptiness. Nirudyate, are ceased, is ceased. Othering in emptiness is ceased. So this is Nagarjuna's very concise summation of thought number 8 of the 8 thoughts. And this was totally lacking from Shobogenzo and from the Chinese translation of Nishprapancha as Fukeron. Fukeron doesn't give any indication about emptiness. So it's not a useful translation. All a study of Asvaghosa and Nagarjuna, it starts with wanting little, and like dominoes fall one after the other, we get to domino number 8, and Nishprapancha means not othering, and that is how we can enjoy the sovereignty of golden sitting in samadhi, by not othering. Nishprapancha. Whereas the whole edifice of British imperial establishment of sovereignty over others for the last 500 years has all stems from the old Roman divide et impera, divide and rule. And the divide and rule, Tavistock has turned it into a fine art. Divide and rule depends on getting people to other everything. Okay, so the very reliable ancient teaching of the Buddha and the ancient Indian patriarchs preserved in Sanskrit, that has in it very, very reliably, in this unreliable world, the antidote to the evil intentions of old British money.